Everyone has heard about Bigfoot. Not many know that there's a much more terrifying cryptid stalking the deepest, darkest woods of North America and beyond, the Dogman. What is the Dogman? A myth? A legend? Maybe, maybe not. There are a number of Dogman encounters that may change your mind on the reality of the being. Here are a few. Number 5. Humanoid creature from KDM in Rock County, Wisconsin. It was July 2004. 3 of my friends and I were out in the field, just having a good time, messing around. That's when we heard some noises off in a field, a couple of 100 yards away. We didn't think too much of it. A little while later, we kept hearing the noises getting louder. We could also hear trees breaking and things like that. We tried to ignore it, but we soon found out that ignoring those sounds was a bad idea. We saw a creature that was 7 to 8 feet tall, coming towards us. The creature stood like a human and acted as a human would, but it looked like a dog or a wolf. We were completely surprised. We had no idea what was going on. We ran back to our cars as fast as we could and drove away. Number 4. Hunted by John from Australia. A man has bizarrely claimed he was stalked by a terrifying dogman monster in the Australian outback, and even says he has picture proof. The fisherman called John wildly claims he was left petrified for a month after encountering the supposed half-dog, half-human creature on 2 separate occasions. Speaking on the Believe Paranormal and UFO podcast, the Aussie insisted he was followed by what he has branded a dogman, and claims he thought he was going to be killed. John was fishing from his kayak on Boxing Day last year when he says the first incident happened. I noticed that every time I took a stroke with the paddle of my kayak, whatever this thing was, it was taking a stride to each paddle I was taking, he said. So whatever it was, this thing was following me. It wasn't a coincidence or anything. It was more of a stalk. Freaked out, John took a snap and claims he captured the dogman on camera. The creature I actually got in the photo, what I think it is. I've spoken to a few people, and I reckon it's a dogman. After that, I couldn't go back to the area to check it out by myself. I was petrified for probably a month after it. I was waking up in the middle of the night and seeing the creature in my dreams. Although he was petrified, John once again returned to the bush for another fishing trip and says he heard a bit of a bang followed by the sound of someone or something running. As it was running, it was smashing trees out of the way, he added. I don't know if they were breaking or if it was hitting them. You couldn't see what the bush was like because it was so thick. John said the dogman then started to roar as he spent 10 minutes trying to escape back to the safety of his car. Number 3. Terrifying by Eric C. from Indiana. I'd never heard anything like it in my life, he said. It would roar and then it would take a breath in, but then the breath it was taking was actually louder than the roar it was doing. This creature just went to another level, and it was crazy. I could hear in my head something saying, "Go now or you'll die." It wasn't my own voice, my own consciousness. It was something else. That was probably the most terrifying experience in my whole life. I thought I was going to be killed. I had no weapons, didn't even have my pocket knife, no phone service either. Number 2. Primal Fear by Ricky Sanchez from Wisconsin. Ricky Sanchez stepped out of his house in rural Wisconsin into the cool night to look for a tool left in the backyard. Searching in the darkness, he was hit by an immense and nearly overpowering wave of primal fear. His senses sharpened as his fight-or-flight response went to full power. Something large walking on 2 legs came around the corner from his right rear. It ducked back and glared at him. As his pupils dilated, Ricky could see its long snout, pointed ears, and massive frame. Something told Ricky to quickly look to his front. He saw another. Scanning his surroundings, he noticed 3 more, all now maneuvering toward him. Ricky, a corrections officer, has been through all the high-risk, high-threat training offered as a member of his prison's emergency response unit. He also trains working dogs and maintains a kennel on his property. Better than most of us, he understands canine behavior and the predatory instincts of killers. Fortunately for Ricky, that life experience kicked in as the 5 creatures surrounded him. He focused, calmed himself, and assumed an assertive posture and mindset. "Knock it off. I'm not running," he said. He spoke firmly and confidently, just as he would to an aggressive dog or inmate. The creature stopped and slowly retreated. So did Ricky, back into the safety of his house. It wasn't the first time he had seen a Dogman, nor would it be the last. But it was definitely the scariest of the 15 encounters he has had since 2010. Number 1, Terror in the Woods by Dave Leedy from North Carolina. Dave Leedy drove slowly down a remote road in coastal North Carolina after 1 a.m. He and his wife Lisa were looking for a safe spot to park their truck and trailer and camp for the night. They were startled by the sound of a loud thunk against the rear of their Airstream. Dave was sure he hadn't hit anything and stopped to investigate. Moving to the back of his trailer, he noticed a large dent below the right tail light. Just then, the insect noises stopped and a strong sense of being hunted came over him. He unholstered his .357 Magnum as the sense of dread increased. He could hear something moving in the marsh just off the road. When his eyes focused on the area where the noise was coming from, his brain processed what he was seeing as a much larger version of one of his German shepherds. Then it did something that still haunts him. Dave heard 2 loud popping sounds as it reared up and stood on its back legs. The Dogman stared at Dave, growled, and then looked to its right. Dave looked in the same direction and saw another on all fours creeping toward him. He immediately understood he was being flanked by the second Dogman as the first held his attention. Then the first creature stepped forward and bared its teeth. Now both were advancing on him. Dave raised his pistol and fired. Sure, he had hit the first Dogman in the shoulder. It stopped, and Dave used a momentary pause to break contact, jump in the truck, and hit the accelerator. He looked in the side mirrors and counted 2 more standing behind the first pair. All 4 gave chase until Dave was nearing 40 miles per hour. When he saw them slow, peel off the road, and head back into the marsh, he kept driving and didn't stop until they made it to a town and a well-lit parking lot to spend the night. Undeterred by that experience, Dave now investigates Dogman sightings. He has had several more encounters of his own and told the story in an episode of the television series Terror in the Woods.